Well, good afternoon. I'm Mhahesh Muraleedharan. I'm an architect from UST Global. I'm here to speak about test data and how and what's the importance of test data in today's industry when you speak about AI, ML, and all. But before I even get to the crux of it, AI is a buzzword as everybody speaks now, including machine learning, etc. But then do you know that the term AI was first used in academic principle back in the 1940s? And then the word AI was actually coined in 1956 by John McCarthy in a white paper. How many of you knew this? 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. Well, I was surprised. I didn't know it too because the first fantasy movie that I probably saw when I was a teenager was a Terminator. So has anybody here watched the Terminator series? Any of them? Right. Many hands. I like that. So we're able to correlate what is happening in the present world with something that you saw in the movie. Can somebody help me out with some examples? Anybody? Come on, guys. It can be louder. I would like to be this interactive so that I don't get to sleep and you don't sleep as well. Any examples that you see in a real life world that you probably see in some fiction movies? No, probably I take the honors. Well, when I first saw the movie, the movie was all about people living in the Mars, right? And then you had electric cars, and then you were building ecosystem in another planet, and then you have the Simpsons series, who are predicting that I can talk to people by looking at them, which we call it the so-called FaceTime. And now if you look at how the industry is expanding now, the possibilities are endless, isn't it? We have FaceTime, right? The chatbots, your facial recognition. And AI is actually being widely celebrated nowadays that some of the most celebrated technologies or the outcome of AI is not even considered to be an AI, right? How many of you use an iPhone now in this room? How many of you have an iPhone, right? I'm pretty sure it's most new, the latest technology phone that you have. Or how many of you having the latest phone that was in the market quite soon? Each one of you is holding a technological progression that is having an AI built in it, which could be a facial recognition, which isn't considered to be AI anymore because it's part of your daily life, isn't it? So that's part of the fiction and facts. I think I'm able to bring in a context of where AI is. Now let's take a look at what the industry experts have to say about the global market has to offer for AI. Gartner, in the most recent report, says that by 2020, 85% of the CIOs would be piloting an AI program through a combination of buying it for somebody else, build it by their own, or outsourcing it. Forrester, another industry expert, says that by 2021, AI within intelligent agents, which you all use, the Siris, the Google Hellos, will evolve significantly beyond the natural, today's relatively simple NLP and machine learning. And then Patricia, who is another industry expert, says global predictive analysis, a market is going to reach close to 15 billion by 2023. This actually gives a message of the possibilities of us as testers and the community as service providers has in terms of ensuring the quality of AI system that is going to be in the market is as good as possible. Now that's what the industry has to say. Can somebody help me with what's buzzing in the industry about AI? Now, 2019, well, from 2017, from when Sophia was granted her residentship, right, it's buzzing about AI. Everybody wants to speak about AI. Every company wants to launch an AI platform. Can you give me some examples of what's buzzing in industry now? Anybody? Everybody's gone silent. Am I boring? Somebody from the back, maybe? Well, I'll have to take the honors again, probably a Friday afternoon. Well, I've classified what's buzzing in 3 different categories. I try to make it very simple and clean. And the list may go on, but the categories is one where we have actually made genuine, rapid technological progresses. This could be facial recognition, content identification. I'm sure every single one of you are music lovers. Shazam is an app that I widely use. Every time I travel abroad and I hear music, then I try to recognize who the singer was or what the album was. Again, facial recognition, as I said at the beginning, you have your cell phone, you unlock your phone and your applications using your face, and then nowadays it doesn't even consider to be an AI because it's quite working now. But then again, there's a huge challenge with this. There is an ethical concern because of the high accuracy that the systems are providing, right? Come to it. The second classification is, yes, we have an idea, but it's improving, but it's far from perfect. Some of the examples I can quote is spam detection, hate speech detection, which some of the social media websites are relatively using quite a lot to avoid our hate speeches and then find and take it away from their social media platforms, content recommendation as some few examples. And the last one, which I call as fundamentally dubious. Due to various odd reasons, it could be with predicting high-risk kids, it could be predicting terror risk, it could be even predicting a job performance. Now, I'm going to correlate this to some of what has been in the news quite recently and why I've classified this into these three different categories. Now, each three categories has its own ethical problems. One, it could be because the accuracy is too high, or the accuracy is too low, or the system is still being trained to respond in a way that we want the AI to respond. Now, I went through three different categories. Now, are you able to classify some of these news? Well, are you able to recognize some of these news that you saw in the industry? Now, I don't want to get into trouble by calling out their real names of the companies, so I've tried to mask it. Something ring bells by reading it? Any? I can see some smiles. Right, so first one, a Chinese billionaire was, his face was actually identified as a jaywalker. Can somebody, hope everybody understands jaywalker is? You know what jaywalker is? Thank you. So what happened with this specific example is, Chinese government had installed a camera to track and identify jaywalkers when they're not supposed to be crossing the roads and etc. A bus had actually stopped, and then it had an advertisement with the billionaire's face. The camera actually caught the face and thought that, well, he's actually crossing the road. What the system was not recognizing was that, well, it wasn't an actual person, it was just a picture, right? So it was hilarious because the billionaire who wasn't even in the country was summoned by the court to be present and pay the fine for being a jaywalker. Now this, going back to your fundamentally dubious challenge that I was saying, predictive policing, you could classify among any of these, some of these challenges to be. What are the top challenges that is driving out of the top failures, as I would say, that was coming out of the news? What could be the top 10 challenges? Can somebody help me out with some challenges with AI? I know Professor Shankar actually gave us a wide list of challenges and what we should be focusing on with AI. Some examples that you can talk on what could be a problem with AI solutions that we have, or why some of these failures happened. Misused? Anything else? Thank you. Exploitation. Thank you. I'll take the honors back. Now, each of these companies had a variety of data with them. When I say variety, a large set of data, right? Now, traditionally, when you look at it, the concept of ML actually came in because there was a huge set of data available, and then people weren't necessarily unsure of what they could do with it. And then data analysts and experts came in and said, well, you could use those set of data for benefit of customer. There could be a lot of use cases where we can be of solving a problem with the customer, take them to the next stage in the life as well. What was the problem was that though the data was there, it did not have necessary data to train the model on certain aspects that did not happen already, right? So let's look at the data approach that we have in the industry for AI. Now, this is my view of it. Apologies if I'm being biased to a separate aspect of it. Traditionally, again, as I said, you have a business idea, and then you collect the data from production. You prepare the data. When I say preparing it, you do a lot of fairness assessment to see if it's biased, if it has the necessary data that you need, classifying it. And then you split the data into three. 1 for training the model, 2 for testing the model, and 3 for validating the model. Now, traditionally, you don't see this aspect of validating it, but then during my research, it says that it's always good to have some set of data to have unbiased validation of the model before it's actually going to production. So you use the first set to train your system. Once the model is ready, you do continuous testing, leveraging data that you split for testing, and then you validate your model. Once this is done, you deploy the model into production. Now, do you stop there? Probably not. You then check the accuracy of the model. You keep on checking it, leveraging confusion metrics, and then it's a reiterative process of pushing the data back into your system, validating what part of the system was not accurate, and then you retrain the model for your system to be more as efficient as possible. I was working on a project for my organization where there was a need for a bank, money laundering system, where they wanted to understand or train their AI model in terms of certain things that hasn't happened yet. Sorry, am I audible again? Yep. And I looked at the data sets that was available to me, that was given to me by the financial organization. There were a lot of problems with it. One, the lack of coverage to predict the scenarios. That hasn't happened in the future yet, because they want the AI to be as perfect as possible and not crash when somebody trolls it, like what happened with a technology company. There were restrictions on data extractions, because if you're taking it from production, you cannot take large set of data at one time. You also focus on GDPR compliance, as you said, sir. There are other regulations that comes in depending on the industry you move on. If you go on healthcare, you have HIPAA, etc. And then production data, as far as I'm concerned, is unpredictable because of the human element that comes in it. You go into a field where you're expecting a certain value to be there, then you have a dot, and not having a proper data, which then forces the system to not train properly. And then I spent time researching and reading, and then spending time with my data analyst, and then we thought, well, this could be the ideal solution to solve the problems that we have in the industry. So top challenges. One, I have data. I have enough data to train the model that the scenarios have already occurred in production or in the live site. Challenge number two, I know the scenarios that can happen in future with the help of domain experts, but I don't have data to train the model yet. And challenge number three, I need huge volumes of data to train, test, and then validate the model. With that, I broke the earlier approach into a slightly different approach where it could make a little more sense. You look at this diagram in two different aspects, okay? One, you just want to prep your model and then push into production, because the CIO necessarily wants to have an AI solution in the market, saying, well, I'm the first person to be in the market with an AI solution. There are huge pressure on service industries like us to get a model into production, and this is where the top part of the approach actually works for you. So you have an idea, you classify the data into different parameters in terms of the volume you need and the coverage you need, and then you subset the data once you extract it from production, apply masking rules, etc., and prepare your tools if you're using any for configuring it, like GenRocket, Telfix, or even an IBM Optim. You validate and you do a fairness assessment to ensure that there isn't any sensitive data, and then you apply data subsetting, do the masking for all the sensitive data that you identified, and then again you split into the three. Problem number two, model is ready, but it's not yet ready to be in production because it still doesn't know how to respond to solutions which it doesn't know yet. In this instance, you take the approach of mixing production data with synthetic data. Domain experts play a very huge role in this aspect, because as a business, they can only say, I want the AI to predict or work in a certain way, but they may not necessarily be able to tell you, this is how it should function. You bring in domain expert to say, you know what, this is how your system can go, and then you do the product configuration. You script for the data, prepare the data, keep it ready, and then move it to your synthetic data warehouse. I'm sure most of you who have worked in any synthetic data tool, it provides you a data warehouse where you can store it and then push it out for your future references, etc. And then, again, split the data into three: test, train, and validate. Train the model, push it to production, deploy the model. Once it's there, validate using confusion metrics. It's a repeated process. If it's okay, the accuracy of the model is as you expect it to be, you'll just leave it as it is to train itself. If it is coming down, you extract the data set where the problem was happening. And then you validate for compliance challenges, because you cannot take production data as it is. GDPR is huge. You could get into a lot of concerns. You get with a huge fine. Replace compliance data, challenge data, with a synthetic data. This way, you're not actually losing the integrity and clarity of the data. You're only replacing certain values of what could be a problem in the production that could cause me a compliance challenge, and then replacing it. I stayed in Bangalore. I came in Bangalore a couple of days back. I don't mind saying that I was in Bangalore. I don't even mind I was part of the conference. But would I want to tell you that I stayed in a hotel, whether I say in Radisson Blu? Probably not, because you may want to beat me up for coming up and speaking about an AI solution, isn't it? So there's a lot of concerns about it. So you replace certain elements of data from production, ensure that you're not leaking out any challenge or sensitive data, and then you put it back in an iterative process, and then you retrain the model, you validate it, and then you push it back into production. This system has been very effective for some of the use cases that I've been working with, some of the industry experts as well, where I've been able to generate close to, increase the accuracy level by at least another 10% to start with, because of enough use cases that we have to retrain the model where we aren't expecting any solutions to be there or a question to come in production yet. Now, I spoke about I was working for a solution for my organization. I'll take a minute to talk you through what the solution was, and I'll play a video that actually explains what the solution actually was as well. Now, how many of you are from a services organization here? Services company? A huge chunk of you. Right, thank you. So each of your organizations, including me, have created a set of accelerators to enable testing for your customers to ensure that a faster delivery is actually met, their needs are actually met for specific customer challenges, right? Similarly, we do have too. So what I did, we did not re-engineer the wheel. We took some part of what was already there. We already have a set of tools that was already there. We already have a set of large domain experts as well. And then we also had a chatbot. And who doesn't like chatbot in these days? What we did is, the use case was simple. First one was a banking domain where they wanted large set of data in a BI2 format. Now, people who are in the industry would understand how hard it is to get large volume of a BI2 template. And then there was another solution who was more into invoicing and taxing. They wanted large set of PDF files to be generated to train their model. Purchase orders. And then specific to testing, an organization wanted to develop and create a defect classification engine by validating incidents for production, historical data and tests, as well as by validating inputs from social media responses as well. And then e-commerce websites, which we already had as a pack, which we even were able to take it into production. We leveraged the tool. I'd like to call upon GenRocket for thank you for helping us with this. We are their first partner, and we leverage GenRocket scenarios for most of our AI solutions to start with. I'm sure most of you had attended the GenRocket track session yesterday would understand how the tool works. I don't want to get into the depth of it. What we did is we leveraged a solution to create domain-specific attributes in the tool, map it with correlation on how we can create zillions of records of data. It could be with Mhahesh staying in India, Mhahesh staying in abroad, Mhahesh staying in Bangalore, and it could be with a lot of other factors of data that you want classified. It could be, all I wanted to do was create extensive set of data under seconds, a faster delivery and self-service provisioning of data. These scenarios are created and established. You bring in all the attributes of domains, relationships, and then you create a GenRocket scenario file. And then you run the scenario, which would then give you output in multiple different formats, as Garth Rose explained half an hour back about having outputs in XML, JSON, etc. Where the chatbot actually comes is we made it easy for the testers who are actually going to test the accuracy of the system by not going into GenRocket each time and run the scenario file. I'd rather ask a few questions to the chatbot and say, well, I want to generate X amount of data, can you do it? And then it does for you. I'm going to play a video so that it actually explains, it actually shows you how it looks like. And apologies for the awkward silence in between when the video plays as well. The first example was for an e-commerce website. I took Magento as an example because it was open source. It was quite easy for me to play with. So you see, DataBuddy is up. All it says is asking you to type in numbers 1 or 2. How many records I need? 10,000, 100,000? What is the country type? Specify it. This hasn't been animated. It's real time on how we recorded it as well. Look at the speed at which how we are able to generate 10,000 records of data. And when I'm requesting it, it's doing it as it is. The whole set of scenarios that we created earlier runs in the background, produces the data, and push it out. And when you looked at it, there was no data to start with. I created customer-specific data with username and password. It has updated its database, so I've injected data into the database real time at the time of execution and calling it in the data buddy. I've created n number of records for orders. I've mapped it to certain people saying, Mhahesh has ordered X number of item with X number of price for a certain date. The next one, another solution, is specific to, which one is it? BI2. Specific to, so this is for the incidents. It's asking what type of instance do you want, and how do you want the data to be created. Again, just took a matter of seconds for the data to be generated. It's injecting it into your system, and it's self-sufficient for you as well. I'm very clear on what I'm trying to say. It's not about AI. It's about data and how I can provision data to help you train your system more efficient. Yes, production data is always going to be there for you. Production data has its own challenges. You cannot trust it. It has its own challenges with compliance challenges, and you cannot take large volume of data from it. And you cannot use production data to train your system for scenarios that hasn't happened in production yet. Right? Now, some of classic examples on how or what use cases in production now that is actually using a mix of production and synthetic data for improving their accuracy. I'm sure you're going to correlate it to each one of those. Analyzing anomalies in healthcare reports. So Shankar sir actually pointed out leveraging certain things in healthcare industry, isn't it, sir? So an X-ray manufacturing company actually leveraged a mixture of production data as well as synthetic data to predict anomalies for doctors to say what the person may have a certain disease coming up, or predict a problem as well. Sundar had a classic example in a recent conference keynote he gave about Google AI, when he used his AI for capturing iris and then coming up with solution about what could be your problem and what your gender is, what your sex is, what could be a potential disease that you can get to, which a normal human doctor may not necessarily, or radiologist may not necessarily understand by looking at the data. Fraud detection in banking scenarios. Most of the problem in banking is that it has a lot of personal data in it. You cannot give the data out for training or creating an AI model, using the data to train the model, push it into production. Bot-enabled mobile app testing. P. Claudia was here an hour ago speaking about Certifier. So Certifier is a solution that I've actually used production data as well as synthetic data to bring up their model. Autonomous vehicle validation. I'm not going to say who that was. I'm pretty sure each one of you can classify what that was. Quality assurance across the bus pipeline. This was a different classification engine I was speaking about. What it does is, historically, you look at it, once you deploy according to production, you leave it as it is. But then with quality engineering coming in, continuous testing coming in, the need for stress of quality has also gone high as well. What it does is it looks at, well, we are all into social media now. We are all technology frenzy. People find it easy to report a problem in a Twitter with a hashtag rather than picking up the phone and telling, hey, I have a problem. The AI engine looks at social media trends to analyze and say what you could have a problem coming up. It also looks at your App Store-based feedback. I could go in a Google Play and put a really bad review comment, like Suraj was explaining a little bit ago. You may not necessarily even want to go there. So it looks at predictive analysis, and then it also has the capability to look at historical data, and then it's how you want to use the data. I could either take it in and say, well, I could use the data to say X amount of functionality in next release is going to have more defect coming in. So you need to put in more stress on testing that area. It could be to help predict a problem that hasn't occurred yet. Somebody might say, hey, your system is responding slow. One of the customers that I was working with in the UK, their entire e-commerce website was down because they did not notice the trends that was coming in social media. People kept on saying there was a problem in your website. And this was during Christmas hours. Think about the money they would have lost. For 2 days, pre-Christmas and Christmas, the whole site was down. Solution actually was implemented for them before the next Christmas, and it actually helped them to track down problems before it even occurred, which they were able to make predictive measures. And with that, I would like to end the session. Can I take any questions? I think I have time for one question, please. Can you be a bit louder? I can't hear you. It's about bringing in the right mix of domain experts as well as the specific application experts as well. You take money laundering, for example, right? I'm not a person who works extensively well with the banking industry to say, these are the specific categories I need. You bring in a domain expert to say, these are the data that I need. At the same time, business can also give you inputs around the areas that they want to cover, but domain experts are your key. I had one more.
For AI ML model, you need a data which has the input data as well as the output label. Because when you do the training of the model, you need input and output both. Correct? The historical data will have the input features as well as the output label. Correct? But when you generate the synthetic data, you would only have the input part of that, not the output part of that. Right? So, for example, it's credit card approval. In history, you have for this combination, it was approved, this combination, it was not approved. Now, if you come with 20 more scenarios, how would you say that out of 20, 10 should be classified under approved category and 10 should be in rejected category?
Well, I never said that you should only be using synthetic data for training your model, did I? The problem with, well, the concept of AI actually came in, and ML actually came in because you had a large set of data available. Industry has moved on. Our customers are coming with new and new use cases each day, and they say, well, I can't give you any data. Let's take an airline for an example. They want to predict the tires wear and tear. How are we going to get the data for that, isn't it? Yeah. So in such scenarios, what I'm saying is use synthetic data, bring it in to start your model, prepare it, and then move it into production rather than arguing with the customer saying, I need data to start with it. It should be a right mixture of production and synthetic. I would say it could be a 70-30 to start with to improve the accuracy of your AI solution. Okay? Thank you all. I'll be out if you have any more questions. I'm more than happy to take it. And there is a portal as mentioned by the QAI. I'll take more questions in and respond to you as in that way as well. Thank you very much.